I never thought my daughter-in-law would lock me out in the pouring rain for 3 hours until the moment I realized this family was drifting from me. I still remember the thunder rumbling like an angry beast in the distance. The clouds burst open, and cold droplets fell, hitting my face like tiny darts. My heart raced. It was my son's birthday, but all I could think about was how isolated I'd become. I stood there, drenched, feeling the chill seep through my clothes. The house behind me was a sanctuary filled with laughter I could no longer access. I knocked once, then again, harder. "Let me in," I shouted into the storm. But the silence that greeted me was colder than the rain. My own flesh and blood were inside, yet here I was, out in the dark, feeling like a ghost of my former self. The walls of their home loomed high, enclosing secrets I yearned to grasp. I could hear muffled voices, the clinking of glasses, perhaps even a birthday song wafting through the air. Each note pierced my heart, sending shockwaves of longing deep within. I could picture the smiles, the warmth that enveloped everyone but not me. They didn't even look my way. I felt invisible, like I was standing on the sidelines of my own life. That I leaned against the cold, wet door, tears mixing with the rain on my cheeks. Memories flooded back. Family dinners, holidays, my son's first steps. I had held him, loved him, and now, it felt like everything I built was crumbling. My stomach twisted. Was it something I said? Some long-buried grudge that resurfaced? I couldn't help but wonder where it all went wrong. Every second stretched into eternity. The rain poured harder, creating an uninviting symphony of chaos. Could this be the moment everything shifted? A tension danced in my chest. I thought of my late husband, how he would never have let this happen. His voice echoed in my mind, urging me to fight for my family. But what if? What if they no longer wanted me there? And then, just as I was about to turn away, I heard a sudden crash from within. A loud gasp, followed by frantic whispers. My heart pounded fiercely in my ears. What was happening? I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear. Was it an argument? An accident? My pulse quickened. Suddenly, the laughter took on a sinister edge. Their joy became a steely knife, twisting in my heart that I flinched as the door creaked slightly inward, revealing just a sliver of light. My breath hitched in my throat. Would someone come to let me in? Or was this a warning? I was teetering on the precipice of something monumental. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I felt the weight of silence pressing on me, thick and unyielding. The beam of light that slipped through the door beckoned, a fleeting hope shining against the dark backdrop of my despair. But with every moment that passed, the light began to wane like a candle flickering in the wind. My heart ached with a clamor of emotions, gratitude wrestled with dread. As I leaned in closer, a sudden rush of movement caught my eye. The door opened further, just enough for me to see a figure silhouetted against the warm glow of the living room, a soft shape in sharp contrast to the chaos of the storm. My son's face appeared, its expression a canvas of confusion and concern. "Mom?" he called, his voice barely making it through the barrier between us. Those two syllables pierced through the fog of isolation, and somehow, I felt both elated and terrified. "Please, let me in," I begged, my voice trembling as I glanced back at the unforgiving rain. Before he could respond, I heard a muffled voice from behind him, a mixture of annoyance and urgency belonging unmistakably to his wife. "No. You can't just let her in, not now." The door wavered, and a chill swept through me, slicing deeper than any raindrop could. "Just a second," he shouted back, but the hesitation between us felt miles apart. It was a standoff I wasn't prepared for. The moment stretched painfully, thoughts wrestling in my mind, Was I merely an unwelcome visitor now, a ghost that haunted their family gatherings? Then, without warning, the door creaked open wide enough for me to step over the boundary, only to find my son's face tight with uncertainty. The warmth of their home filled the air, battling against the cold I brought with me, but the warmth did little to ease the growing chill between us. "Mom, I thought you were okay," he said, shifting awkwardly. The lack of a direct embrace, the absence of comfort, felt like a heavy rock in my chest. It was like being in a desert, a mirage of connection glimmering in front of me yet always just out of reach. What happened? Is everything okay? My heart raced, and I desperately searched his eyes for answers. "Just a little mix-up," he replied, glancing back as if checking for approval from his wife. There was something unspoken hanging between us, a web of tension that had built up over time, festering in obscure ways. As I stepped inside, I was met with warmth that felt foreign and imposing. Laughter lingered in the corners of the house, hastily extinguished as I entered. I caught the eye of my daughter-in-law, the expression on her face nothing short of icy. "What do you want?" she snapped, her tone slicing through the moment like a blade. "Just to be a part of this family," I answered softly, feeling the sting of her words touch a raw nerve. "Part of the family?" She scoffed, disbelief curling her lip. I could see her indignation dancing like fire in her eyes, a warm glow turned to embers. "You can't just walk back in it like that." Lena, my son, started, but she was already shaking her head, a wall raised between us. "We can't just welcome chaos back into our lives." The word chaos landed heavily. I had never thought of myself that way. I was struggling to comprehend the weight of her resentment. It felt as if I were unraveling at the seams, the fabric of my life fraying ever so slowly. "You don't know what it's like," my voice thick with heartbreak, "to feel so cut out, so abandoned." The room was thick with silence, each person processing the rift that widened between us. It felt impossible to bridge the gap forged through years of unspoken sentiments and rising discontent. Then, miraculously, a small figure appeared from behind, clinging to the doorframe, a child, my grandson. His wide eyes flickered between his parents and me, sensing the tension. "Grandma," he chimed, as he rushed towards me, arms outstretched. For a moment, my heart soared. Hope. But as he approached, his mother's hand shot out, gripping his shoulder firmly. "No," she interjected sharply. "Not right now." That I stood frozen as the child's cheerful spark dimmed. In his innocent eyes, I could see confusion, hurt blooming like a wildflower in a storm. "Why?" "I want to hug Grandma," he protested, oblivious to the tempest brewing around us. Her grip loosened, and he bolted into my arms, the warmth of his small frame a stark contrast against the chill that had taken residence in my heart. I held him tightly, drawing strength from his presence, feeling the warmth spread as if thawing the bitter frost surrounding my existence. But the moment of solace shattered when Lena's voice rang out again. "Enough." The bitter edge sent tremors through my body. I released my grandson, though I felt the loss like a splintering branch under strain. His small frown mirrored my heartache. The storm outside matched the tumult within. The window beside me rattled with the force of the winds. "What have I done to deserve this?" I whispered, battling tears that threatened to spill freely. As the world around us blurred, there was a chance encounter outside, a silhouette standing at the gate, pacing, hesitant despite the downpour. I couldn't see clearly, but instinct told me this presence was intricately connected to the heartache in the room. Just then, a muffled voice echoed from behind me, unmistakable sound of someone familiar calling out my name, drowning out the chaos encircling us. I turned, and shock gripped me. What was unfolding in that moment felt like the earth shifting beneath my feet. I had hoped for change, but not this, not now. In the storm's embrace, a new wave of confusion washed over me as I took in the sight. My heart raced again, the storm inside mirrored by the tempest outside, pulling at all I thought I understood. The room felt as though it had shrunk, the air suffocating amid the tension coiling steadily around us. My heart pounded, drowning out the laughter that once filled this space. My mind raced, straining to comprehend the significance of the figure outside. Could it really be him? Lena crossed her arms, her expression a forbidding mask, while my son stood caught in the crossfire, glancing nervously between his wife and me. "Mom, just please, let's take it easy," he pleaded, the desperation in his voice a haunting echo of my own feelings of inadequacy. "Maybe I wouldn't have to force this welcome if I hadn't been thrown out like garbage," I retorted, unable to bury the resentment and confusion any longer. The words spilled from me like shards of glass, each one cutting deeper. "Mom, that isn't fair." His voice rose high enough to sway my attention a moment before falling back into the cacophony of silence. "I never wanted it to be like this," I said softly, my eyes flitting towards the curtain, the silhouette still pacing back and for the dance of uncertainty clad in the shadows. The rain lashed against the windows, a rebuttal to the discomfort that had filled the space. "None of us did." Lena snapped, her voice brisk like the lash of the storm outside. "You think you can just waltz back in, expecting all of us to forget who you've been? It's not that simple." Caught in the crossfire of angry words, I felt like a puzzle piece that no longer fit. Reality twisted like the branches thrashing against the window, churning feelings of guilt and despair in equal measure. Was this how my son felt too? Torn between the fragments of his life, each split pulling him toward a different destiny. Then, in the midst of the brewing storm, my grandson, who had remained a silent observer, looked up at me with wide, hopeful eyes. "Are we going to play? Can we go outside?" The innocence in his voice struck a chord. I knelt down, wanting him to feel that warmth I had possessed a lifetime ago. "Just a moment, sweetheart. We will soon. I promise," I said, fighting against the rush of tears, the churning sea of my emotions. How could I explain the complexity of this situation to a child so eager to bridge the gaps? Lena shot me a suspicious glance. "You can't just promise things like that without thinking ahead. He doesn't understand what you might bring back with you." My heart sank. "I'm his grandmother," I whispered, my voice barely a breath of air. "I want to be a part of your life again, cast aside the shadows." Suddenly, the door swung open with a crash, and the silhouette from outside was framed in the doorway, drenched but fiercely a manifestation of an emotion I thought I had buried with my discarded dreams. It was my daughter, her hair plastered to her face, eyes fierce with concerns that mirrored my own. "Mom." She stepped inside, shaking water from her clothes as she assessed the situation. "What is going on here?" What a perplexing twist of fate to be caught between conflicting loyalties, feelings swirling like stormy waves crashing against an unsteady shore. I had yearned for this moment, but my heart sank seeing the familiar yet foreign expression on her face. Ghosts of the past lingered between us, barriers built brick by brick that neither of us could pull down alone. "Mom," she searched my eyes, "I thought you didn't want anything to do with us anymore." "That's not true," I pleaded. "I came back because I miss you, both of you. I was lost but never wanted us to lose each other." My heart wanted to soar as I saw the flicker of recognition in her eyes, but the reality of the situation braced me. Her arms remained crossed, a barricade between us. "It doesn't matter what happened before," Lena interjected harshly. "You've already made your choice." "Choices can change," I whispered, my voice small amidst growing discord, "a choice to mend what was broken." My daughter looked at me, hope swirling like autumn leaves caught in a tempest. I noted the flicker of uncertainty flash and fade like a light through the window, casting a soft glow that illuminated our strained atmosphere. Just beneath the surface, there was an ember of something unearthing vulnerability, longing for connection, but would it be enough? The ambience shifted, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if we could all breathe again, if only to find a way back to each other. But then, my daughter's hand tightened on her phone. "You know what? I can't do this right now," she said, her voice cracking, as she turned toward the door. With one last glance back, the vulnerability transformed into defiance. "I can't keep doing this," she whispered so softly, as if afraid her words might summon the very chaos we had tried to dismiss. The door closed behind her, and an echo of finality ripped through the room, each footfall swallowed by the silence that now fell heavily, as I clutched at the air around me. Now it was just me, my son, and Lena, the three of us bound together by past conflicts while the storm outside raged on. I sensed the ghostly resemblance of what could have been, an unspoken promise fraying at the edges. Mom, my son murmured after an unbearable pause, uncertainty clinging to his every word. I don't know where we go from here. Just when I felt the ache of despair deepen, my phone buzzed against my leg. I froze, every person in the room watching me as I pulled it out. The message flash illuminated the dim room like lightning across the clouds, an unexpected call for help from someone I hadn't thought would ever reach out again. An anguished twist of fate, or the canary in the coal mine? I hovered over the screen, heart racing wildly as the implications of what lay ahead crashed over me like waves on a shore full of stones. One choice could pull us deeper into unknown waters, while another might lead back to safe shores. The patter of rain outside accompanied my heart beating in anxious rhythm as I stared at the blinking screen of my phone. My hands trembled, the weight of urgency anchoring me to reality. I had hoped for reconciliation, for a moment of warmth with my children, yet the shadow of my daughter leaving loomed larger as I contemplated this unfamiliar message. It was from an old friend, someone whose name sparked memories buried deep beneath the fractures of my past, and yet now it beckoned me with a siren's call. Mom? My son's voice split through the tension, bleary with a mix of concern and confusion, pulling my focus back into the room. The dim light from the phone illuminated his bewildered expression, but I was still caught in the web of that digital message, a friend reaching out after years of silence. It's from Karen, I murmured, barely managing to articulate her name. The memories flooded my mind like quicksilver, the familiar laughter, the moments of shared dreams, the promises made during summer nights under twinkling stars. She had always been the anchor in my turbulent life, but when things began to spiral, I let her slip away like everything else. Who? Lena inquired, her arms still crossed defensively, the skepticism coiling in her stern demeanor like a storm cloud ready to burst. Karen. We used to be close. She's asking for help, I replied, my voice bearing the weight of the past tangled up in the present. She says she's in trouble. Trouble? My son echoed, his voice a mixture of disbelief and concern. Mom, what does that mean? You haven't spoken to her in years. Do you really think it's a good idea to get involved with whatever's going on? Desperation clung to me like a wet coat. This was a lifeline, wasn't it? Or was it just another way to divert my attention from repairing my family? I don't know. But she needs me. I can't turn my back again, I replied, standing my ground. Without waiting for further discussion, I hit reply on the message, my determination coursing through my fingers as I typed. What do you need? I pressed send, the digital echoing of my hope unfurling into the air heavy with accusations and uncertainty. Lena huffed, the sound laden with skepticism as she turned away, her gaze returning to the rain-soaked window as if it held the answers we desperately sought. My son swayed, torn between wanting to reach out for my hand and fearing the repercussions that could come from whatever storm was brewing outside our own insular troubles. Time stretched painfully as I hovered over the phone, willing a response to come through, my heart swaying between the desire to help and the fear of plunging back into chaos. The imaging of my past echoed painfully, each memory brought clarity but also chaos of its own. The weight of my bad choices clawed at the edges of my resolve, but in my gut, there was a flicker igniting, an ember that told me I needed to chase this lead, no matter where it led. Then, amidst the throbbing pulse of silence, my phone buzzed again, an incoming message. I opened the text quickly, a sense of urgency clawing at me. That I need you to meet me. It's urgent. 7 p.m. At the old cafe by the bridge. Please don't tell anyone. A shiver passed through me, amplifying every question I had tried to bury beneath layers of regret. The old cafe was a place where friendships blossomed and secrets were born, a scene of my life before it all fell apart. Mom, what did she say? My son leaned closer, his voice laced with concern that I hesitated, the gravity of the request charging the air with an electric current. She wants to meet at the cafe. Isn't that the place where he couldn't finish his sentence, but the unspoken insinuation hung between us like a specter. It was where everything unraveled, a place of whispered gossip and broken trust. Yes, I admitted quietly, feeling the walls tighten around me. But if she needs help suddenly, Lena turned back, her eyes narrowing into slits of resolute suspicion. You don't seriously intend to go, do you? After all this? Maybe she's not the only one who needs help, I shot back, frustration bursting forth like an uncontrollable tide. You seem to think I'm still the same person I was before. But I'm trying to change, to be better. By running after ghosts? Lena's voice dripped with disdain, knowing the danger that lay ahead. My heart thudded in my chest as growing tension wrapped around us. The room pulsated, echoing our emotions like an unwilling drum, thumping louder until it was almost too painful to bear. Suddenly, the lights flickered, a momentary pause on the edge of something deeper, more consequential. Before I could even think, the power blinked out entirely, drowning us in darkness. "Mom?" My son called out, panic lacing his voice as the sound of rain became a rhythmic symphony against the roof. "What do we do?" I asked, the question charged with the weight of choices spinning furiously in my mind. That heavy silence, just under the persistent roar of the storm, I realized that this was no ordinary night. The pathway ahead carved itself in uncertainty, yet I felt a flicker of fear and fragility dancing dangerously close to hope. The invitation, the promise of a meeting, could unravel threads I had barely begun to stitch together. In the void, I felt an ominous tremor, like a bolt of lightning striking just outside the walls of our home. Whatever unfolded, it would change everything. And just as soon as it began, my phone buzzed again, illuminating the dark with a message that could either lift me or bury me further still. "Be careful. Trust no one." My heart dropped, a cold wave of fear crashing over me as dread pooled at the base of my throat. Who could I trust? As I stood in the overwhelming darkness, I realized that light could only be found if I chose to seek it, even if those choices led to deeper shadows. The rain intensified, drumming against the roof like an urgent heartbeat. I stood paralyzed in the darkness, that last chilling message swirling in my mind: trust no one. Trust. In a world where loyalty felt increasingly fragile, I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew. "Mom, what's going on?" My son's voice broke through my thoughts, sharp with concern. The darkness extended around us, but instinctively, I sensed his desperate need to reach out, to understand. It's complicated," I replied, my heart heavy with the weight of unspoken fears and regrets. I wished I could shield him from the knowledge that things could unravel further, yet here I stood, one foot dangling at the edge of a chasm I could no longer ignore. "Complicated how?" he pressed, and the frustration in his voice buoyed my own hidden fears. How could I explain the echoes of betrayal that still reverberated through my life? "You're not telling us everything, and it feels like you're choosing her over us." His words struck a nerve. I had spent so much time buried in my own chaos that I hadn't noticed how my children were suffering, too. Turning to my daughter, I found her expression softer now, the storm cloud of anger fading into something almost akin to worry. It was a fleeting reminder of the bridge that still connected us, albeit a fragile one. "I am not choosing anyone over you," I asserted, feeling both defensive and desperate. I can't ignore when someone who once mattered to me reaches out like this. What if she's in real danger, or what if this just pulls you back into old patterns?" Lena countered, her tone shifting to a warning. "You don't know what you're getting into, Mom." Before I could respond, the lights flickered back on, the dull yellow illuminating the room just enough to cast shadows on faces that mirrored my own turmoil. My phone vibrated in my hand again, and every instinct screamed to ignore it, to put the device down and reconnect with the warmth of my children instead. "Are you really going to read it?" my son asked, eyes wide with trepidation. That I hesitated for the briefest of moments, before succumbing to the magnetic pull of the digital connection, me lifeline in an oppressive sea of worry. The message read, "Please come. I really need you. It's about something much bigger than you realized." My pulse quickened. The words hung between us, heavy with implications I couldn't yet grasp. I understood now that this request meant more than a simple reunion. It hinted at secrets that were buried deeper and darker than I'd ever imagined. "What if I don't go?" I whispered, almost to myself. "What do you mean?" Lena shot back, uncertainty twisting in her gut. "What if I just stay here with you too? Ignore the past and everything it brings?" There was a part of me that yearned for that simplicity, for the warmth that radiated within our fragile family dynamic. But an even stronger current of a reverse pull tugged at me, revealing the larger picture of regret and unfulfilled responsibilities I had yet to face. "Then what? We just pretend everything's okay?" Lena crossed her arms defensively again, the walls she had erected seemingly impenetrable once more. "I am trying to find my footing," I urged, each word weighed down by their significance. But I need to see what she wants. What if I can help her, and in doing so, I can help myself? My son stepped forward, breaking the tension that simmered in the air. Mom, you've helped us so much already. Don't lose sight of what we have now, chasing a past that might not be what you remember. Each word he spoke was a lifeline tossed into turbulent waters. But as quickly as hope surfaced, it was dashed under the relentless waves of uncertainty. I could feel the pull of nostalgia and anticipate the scent of bitter coffee at that coffee, a potpourri of memories, ambitions, and the bitter pang of guilt thrumming beneath it all. Mom, you need to decide what's more important, us or her. Lena implored, her voice heavy with emotion. As her words hit me, I realized she mirrored my own insecurities, the unspoken fear that reverberated in every small argument between us. Maybe you both deserve a mom who isn't haunted by shadows, I whispered, barely able to voice that part of me that felt unbearably lost. But the past has a way of pulling us back, doesn't it? Just then, my phone buzzed again, this time with a cold finality. You're running out of time. They know you're coming. All the air left the room, and the weight between us intensified with each beat of our hearts. I was caught, suspended between two worlds, one where my children needed me now and one where the flickering past beckoned me like a siren's call, whispering of redemption, but cloaked in danger. Mom! My son exclaimed, the alarm in his voice pulling me back just enough to reconsider the threshold of what awaited me. But at that moment, a new storm collided, one fueled by dread and urgency. I had to make a choice, and yet every instinct screamed that the choice would fracture what I was striving to rebuild. I was standing on the precipice of something greater, yet I was uncertain if it would be salvation or destruction. Mom, you can't go. Lena shouted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, mirroring the storm outside. In that instant, I felt the chasm widening, ready to swallow me whole, as the realization settled deep within me. Had precious little time. Whatever lay ahead held consequences that would affect us all. The storm intensified, both outside and within, and as I looked into my children's eyes, I knew something had to give, but perhaps, that something wouldn't be me. The storm merged seamlessly with the chaos in my heart as I stood there, torn between two realities that threatened to eclipse each other. The air vibrated with tension, thick with unsaid words and emotions just beneath the surface. I felt dragged down by the gravity of it all, as the relentless rain pattered softly against the window, transforming into a gentle reminder of time slipping away. That I turned away from my children, the weight of their desperate pleas intensifying the guilt already knotted in my chest. I knew I needed to make a choice, to disentangle myself from the web of choices and regrets. But the ghost of a past I thought I had shunned waited impatiently on the periphery, an ominous specter with answers I feared to confront. Mom, please. Peter's voice brought me back, like a lifeboat reaching for a drowning soul. You don't have to do this alone. That I had to speak, to reassure them that I was still here, still capable of making the right decision. But inside, the familiar stirrings of doubt began to take root. But am I really alone? I murmured, the question lingering in the air like the dampness that enveloped our home. Enough. Lena suddenly shouted, jolting me back into the present. We can't keep doing this. You don't see what you're doing to us, what you're doing to yourself. Regret flared up in me, catching fire to the already fragile trust we were desperately attempting to maintain. All I want is to fix this for you to be a better version of me, I replied, my voice cracking. But it seems like every time I try, I only make it worse. As I spoke, the haunting vibration of the phone began to resonate again, this time an unrelenting reminder of the urgency gnawing at me. I quietly glanced at my children, who stood dwarfed by my indecision. Their expressions reflected the hurt of someone not quite ready to forgive and still looking for the mother they once knew. Mom, please don't go chasing someone who might only be lying, Peter urged, tears brimming in his beautiful blue eyes, mirroring the rain outside. What if he was right? I wrestled with the fear that, even in seeking the truth, I could potentially imperil our family. Suddenly, the phone buzzed more insistently, almost furious now, demanding my attention. With mounting dread, I felt the weight of choice press down even harder. My voice faltered as the conflicting desires swirled through me. Were the remnants of connection with my past worth the risk of losing my children's trust? Just as I was about to dismiss the message altogether, it flickered again, a new one that caught my eye. Remember our last conversation? I wish things were different, but they don't have to be the same." The words were sharp and familiar, like a note from the past returning to echo through the present, haunting me. "That I have to see her," I muttered, mostly to myself. The fear began to crystallize into resolution, a deep knowing that I had to confront what I had avoided for too long, but as I prepared to step away, I felt a hand grip my arm tightly. Peter, his fingers both pleading and resolute. "What if you never come back?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "What if this time, she does something worse? What if she's not even a part of this anymore?" His fear gripped me, twisted my heart, and for a moment I was lost in his vulnerability. What if I lost him? What if my son had to face the truth that sometimes, love required painful sacrifices? "Listen to your brother," Lena chimed in, her voice sharp but softer than before, like a charm stirred in the heat of familial bond. "It's not worth it, not at this cost." But what was the cost? My heart ached, throbbing through every fiber of my being as I caught sight of their pleading eyes once more. The storm outside began to wane, but the tempest inside still raged. "That I have so many regrets," I finally admitted, swallowing hard as my chest tightened. "I need to confront what's left of my past, however ugly it is, if only to find peace for ourselves." Before they could respond, my phone buzzed one last time like a serpent striking. It illuminated the darkness even further. "You have until midnight. After that, there's no turning back." The urgency seared through me, igniting a wild surge of trepidation. I could feel the clock ticking away, taunting me with its reckless pace. The rain drummed down with renewed intensity, almost like a warning, and the air thick with impending decision suffocated me. Suddenly, the door rattled violently, a sudden loud thud echoing through the room. Someone was at the front door. My heart raced as I shared a glance with my children, panic edged into their faces. "What if it's her?" Lena breathed, fear coloring her words. "What if it's someone worse?" Peter whispered back. I held my breath, stepping cautiously toward the door, every instinct warning me of the unknown danger that lurked outside. The pounding rain harmonized with the erratic beating of my heart, every drop a reminder of the fragile balance I stood on, teetering on the brink between my children and the shadows of my past. As the handle turned slowly, dread churned in my stomach. I could hear my children's breaths in the silence, each inhale a prayer against the fear coursing through the house. And then, in the moments before the door opened, I realized I may not just open the door to old wounds but a revelation that could shatter everything. Whatever waited beyond the threshold, I sensed it would change everything I believed about love, trust, and sacrifice forever. I gripped the handle tightly, ready to push through the threshold, when suddenly on the other side, the figure that appeared was not who I expected. The figure beyond the door was draped in shadow, cloaked by the storm's ferocity. As I reluctantly swung the door open, the sight that greeted me was not the face I imagined, but rather an unfamiliar woman with soaked hair plastered to her forehead. She was shivering, her clothes clinging like a second skin, drenched by the relentless downpour. "What do you want?" I blurted out, the forcefulness of my tone a thin veneer over my own anxiety. I glanced back over my shoulder at Peter and Lena, who stood frozen like deer caught in headlights. Their expressions were a mixture of confusion and alarm, mirroring the turmoil swirling within me. The woman took a step forward, teeth chattering. "I'm sorry to intrude, but I saw someone. I thought someone needed help. I didn't realize it was this complicated." Her voice faltered, eyes scanning the room as if seeking clues for a puzzle she could not solve. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice sharper than intended. The urgency of my earlier decision weighed heavily on my shoulders, and I found it maddening to be sidetracked by this stranger at such a pivotal moment. "My name is Clara," she replied, her breath hitching as she grabbed the doorframe for support. "I've been looking for you." The earnestness in her eyes hit me like a bolt of lightning. The name didn't ring any bells, yet there was something familiar in her mannerisms, something that made the air heavy with unspoken connections. "Looking for me? Why?" I thrust the question at her, my chest tightening as a new layer of foreboding coiled around my heart. "I heard you might be in trouble, that you were trying to fix things. Fix yourself," Clara said quietly, vulnerability shimmering in her voice as she cast a glance at my children, who were now clutching each other tightly, rooted in their own fear. "Who told you that?" I demanded, cosmic dread rising within me. I was caught between the uncanny sensation of time collapsing. How could she possibly know anything about my struggles? Yet, a part of me also felt the tug of curiosity. Clara hesitated, her fingers twitching nervously against the doorframe. It's a long story, but I've known your daughter-in-law for years. She reached out to me. The air left my lungs as if a door had swung wide open, plunging me into memories I had fought hard to bury. My what? I gasped, disoriented by the implications spiraling from her words. The thought of my daughter-in-law seeking help sent ripples of apprehension through my heart, and it occurred to me just how deep this well of pain might go. She thinks you're on the brink, Clara murmured, seemingly reading the haunted look in my eyes. She's been worried sick about you and your children. She wants you to find peace, too. I just want to help you help all of you, and you think coming here in a storm means you can help? I shot back, anger spilling out like rainwater from a gutter. The memories of wounds fresh and still raw clawed their way to the surface, and I felt the need to protect what little stability remained between me and my children. With a deep breath that trembled slightly, Clara straightened up. Listen, I have my own issues, my own pain, she confessed, her vulnerability now a bridge rather than a chasm. But I know what it means to feel lost, and I think if you give me a chance, I might help you see a way through this. I won't just unlock the door, I will stand by your side. Behind me, I felt Peter reach out, shaking slightly. Mom, she came here for a reason. Maybe we should hear her out? His plea wrapped around my heart, threading its way into the storm of frustration and fear that I glanced at Lena, who was fighting back tears, her expression torn between comfort and confusion. We could see what she means. If it's from Rachel, maybe she's not as alone as we thought, Lena whispered, anxiety threading through her voice as she clasped Peter's hand. The clock in my mind kept ticking as a wave of uncertainty washed over me. Could this stranger truly lead me toward healing? Or was it just another misstep in a long line of them? I was on the brink of another defining choice, the battle between the past and my family's future ragging on. All right, I finally said, stepping aside. Come in. But know this: if you betray my trust or lead us astray in any way, I won't forgive easily. Clara offered a nod, acceptance coursing through her bones like an electric charge. As she entered, shaking off droplets akin to the burdens I had carried for so long, I felt the air change. The storm outside rumbled, but inside, there was a faint flicker of hope, a hesitant ember fighting against the gathering gloom. The three of us stood together, surrounding the stranger who appeared from the rain, as one voice echoed silently within me. It whispered of connections uncharted, of paths unfolding where I least expected them, and as each second slipped by, I sensed a truth lingering just beyond reach, a hidden thread that tied us all together in ways I hadn't yet begun to comprehend. Before I could gather my thoughts, Clara spoke again, her gaze darting nervously among us. There's something I need to tell you, about Rachel. Something she said that might change everything. My breath hitched, memories flooding back in waves as her words hung in the air, an emotional cliffhanger wrapping tightly around our hearts, pulling us deeper into the uncertainty of what was to come. The quiet crackle of thunder outside mirrored the beating of my heart as the weight of Clara's statement settled like fog in the air. My mind raced, flitting through the maze of memories tied to Rachel. Why would she reach out to Clara? What had she said that could possibly change everything? Before I could voice my question, Clara stepped closer, her demeanor shifting to one of urgency. I think Rachel may have seen something. Something that made her afraid for you. She thought you were going to cross a line, and not come back. Peter's hand tightened around Lena's, both of their faces now painted with a mix of fear and confusion. Cross a line? I echoed, the very concept sending a chill down my spine. What depths had I sunk to that Rachel perceived me as someone on the brink of disaster? My past echoed back to me, a cacophony of mistakes, missed opportunities, and a slow unraveling of trust. Yes, Clara continued, her eyes pleading for understanding. She didn't go into details, but she mentioned feeling like she couldn't reach you anymore. The weight you carry, it's pulling you under. She didn't want you to be alone in this. That I wanted to scoff at the irony, to lash out at the sheer notion of Rachel being worried about me when I was the one who had been consumed by my own despair. But then I remembered the late-night phone calls, the times I had turned her away with half-hearted reassurances, my own shame dragging me into dark corners where I felt safest. Why would you care so much about Rachel? You barely know her, I snapped, desperation turning my words sharp. The room felt smaller, the air thick with tension and unspoken words. Clara held her ground, her expression unwavering. Because she's a friend and sometimes life throws us into each other's paths for a reason. I've been where you are, felt the same shadows looming over me. I'm here to lend a hand and remind you that it doesn't have to end in darkness. Her sincerity seeped through my guarded walls, creating fissures where doubt was currently taking root. Was it possible Rachel had spoken to Clara out of a place of compassion, wanting to save me from myself? Or maybe she feared confronting her own demons, and in turn pushed me away as a defense mechanism? Do you know what I've lost? I stated, my voice thickening with emotion. You have no idea what it's like to bury the person you love the most and try to carry her memory while still pretending to be whole for your family. I glanced at Peter and Lena, their faces etched with hurt and uncertainty. I'm failing them every day. What does it matter if I fall apart at this point? Clara shifted slightly, a flicker of empathy crossing her features. It matters because they need you to guide them through this. They need the memory of who you were before all of this took a toll on you. And if you let it consume you, it will break them too. A tear slid down my cheek, its path marked by years of suppressed grief. In that moment of exposed vulnerability, Clara's presence felt less like an intruder and more like the hand that might lead me back to solid ground. I swallowed hard, straining against the surge of conflicting emotions. Peter stepped forward, breaking the silence that felt almost suffocating. Mom, if there's something we need to know about Rachel, we should know it. It could help us make sense of everything. Lena nodded vigorously, her little fists clenched at her sides, a reflection of her unspoken determination. Please, we want to understand. The sincerity in their voices ignited a warmth deep within my chest, an ember of hope glowing brighter. I couldn't let them drown in the darkness of uncertainty, not when the storm rage threatened to consume us all. But what if this meant reopening wounds I had painstakingly sealed? What if knowing the truth only dug us deeper into the mud that had become my life? Clara seemed to sense my hesitation and took a step closer, her voice gentle yet firm. I know you're scared, but whatever Rachel has to say, it's coming from her heart. You owe it to yourselves to hear it. You owe it to her. The expression on her face softened, her vulnerability inviting, coaxing amidst the lingering tension. As her words melted slightly the layers encasing my heart, I realized that to stand in the storm of my sorrow meant risking the unearthing of truths long hidden. With a trembling exhale, I nodded slowly, giving Clara the signal to continue, my heart racing with the uncertainty of what revelations lay ahead. But before she could speak, a sudden crash of thunder echoed outside, a power surge causing the lights to flicker ominously before plunging us into darkness. The abrupt blackness was suffocating. Sounds morphed into a cacophony of chaos as a howl of wind smacked against the windows like a creature desperate to break in. Stay close. I called out, instinctively pulling my children against me as uncertainty tightened its grip on my chest. But in the midst of the panic, a smaller voice broke through the fear, echoing tremulously through the darkened room. Mom, what if we just let it in? That simple question, laced with innocence, made the ground beneath my feet shift yet again, a whisper of an invitation to consider letting go of the control I had clung to so tightly against the adversity battering at our doors. As the enveloping silence danced with the winds outside, dread and anxiety warred within me, and one realization crystallized. Uncovering the truth about Rachel could very well be the key to finally unlocking not only the door to my grief, but also the latent connections binding us together in a tumultuous quest for healing that awaited beyond. The rain lashed against the windows like the frantic heartbeat of a world refusing to stand still. Instinctively drawing my children even closer, I felt their warmth against my sides, a fragile barrier against the storm brewing both inside and out. The momentary flicker of fear lingered, its tendrils snaking into my heart as I struggled against the unknown looming outside. Mom? Lena whispered, her small hand gripping mine tightly. What do you mean, letting it in? I could barely catch my breath, and in this storm of emotions, Raquel's voice echoed in my mind. The girl with hopes and dreams, whose laughter felt like sunlight piercing through the veil of my sorrow, had once been my anchor, and now she was just another ghost, haunting my memories in a house I never thought would feel so empty. Sometimes, sweetheart, I began, my voice barely breaking the chaos outside, we hold on to the darkness so tightly that we forget what it's like to feel the light again. Letting it in might just mean opening ourselves up to each other and to the possibility of hope. Like when we let Uncle Peter show us how to ride bikes. Lena continued, her bright eyes glinting with curiosity even in the dimness. At first, I was scared. I couldn't help but smile at her innocence amid the turmoil. Exactly. You were brave and took a leap of faith, and look what happened. You found joy. Peter interjected quietly, but it's not always that simple, is it? It hurts when we fall, Mom. What if reopening these wounds hurts too? I felt the sting of tears behind my eyes but nodded, as if acknowledging a truth I had withheld from myself. You're right, it does hurt. But pain is a part of healing. We can't really know how to heal if we don't peel back the layers. In the darkness, Clara's presence felt like a lighthouse amidst a tempest. With every storm, there is a chance to grow, to understand even if it requires us to face things we'd rather forget. Before I could express gratitude, a flash of lightning illuminated the room for a split second, the fleeting light revealing Peter's worried face, an unspoken question lingering in the air. It reminded him of the reality standing right outside that door. Do we even know if Rachel's okay? I mean, what if she's in trouble? My heart jolted, the possibility igniting a fervent mix of guilt and dread. I've lost sight of things, haven't I? I whispered, the admission colliding with Clara's gaze. Rachel needed me too, just as much as my children do. She doesn't need to be a burden, nor does the truth, Clara said, tightening her grip on her own heart as she stepped closer. But she might be the key that will stabilize you all in this moment of chaos. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the living room, a tremor that rippled through the house. Fear clenched my chest as I turned my head, heart racing. What was that? Clara peered into the shadows. I will check. Stay here. As she left the room, I wished I could shield my children from the unknown, but it felt impossible when I was barely grasping onto my own stability. It's okay, Peter said softly, though his voice trembled. Mom, no matter what we face it together. And in that moment, amidst the howling winds, a strange thrill coursed through me like a spark. Maybe they were right. Perhaps this shifting storm wasn't just outside, maybe it was within, urging us all to confront what lay across our thresholds. Clara returned slowly, her expression tight, filled with a mix of concern and resolution. There's something you all need to see. A chill stitched its way down my spine. I had an inkling the truth about Rachel loomed closer than ever. She gestured for us to gather, the air heavy with anticipation thickening with every heartbeat. You might want to brace yourselves. This will bring us closer to understanding. Every instinct warned me against it. Dark memories flashed behind my eyes. Clara, I know. But you must trust me. Clara's voice was a calm eye in the eye of the storm, and it was exactly what I needed to hear. With a nod from Peter, and Lena's small grip reassuringly affixed to my hand, we followed Clara into the foyer, the room soaked in shadows. In the glimmer of the lightning, I caught a glimpse of the object Clara had pulled from the shelf, a battered envelope, stained however long it had rested untouched. The name scrawled across the front paralyzed me. It was Rachel's handwriting. She left this for you, Clara said, her eyes reflecting concern and an unyielding determination that radiated truth. You must read it. My heart thundered louder than the storm, anxiety crashing against my lungs. What if it shatters everything? I managed to breathe out, the tremor sidestepping behind my fear. Then we'll pick up the pieces together, Clara replied, her voice soothing me in turbulent waters, even as the air around us hummed with apprehension. Just before I reached for the letter, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the contents of the envelope. But even that flicker felt too late. A door slamming shut as a truth I had been avoiding for years surged back. Somewhere deep inside me, a small voice whispered, "This time, you cannot run." I held the envelope tightly between trembling fingers, every breath urging me to turn it over, while the storm of past and present raged on, a harbinger of the chaos that awaited me. An unanswered question loomed in the air. What was Rachel truly trying to share? And before I could turn that sealed promise over, I felt an unsettling crack of thunder shake the very foundations of our resolve. As the thunder erupted again, a shiver ran through me that felt almost like a mocking laugh, taunting my hesitation. The weight of the envelope hung heavily in my grasp, like an anchor dragging me into depths I feared to explore. With my heart racing, I knew this letter was never just an object, it was a bridge to a past I had tried so hard to outrun. To show the children it was even there felt too perilous. Moments stretched into what felt like lifetimes as I glanced at Clara standing beside me, still emanating that calm energy. She shifted slightly, as if urging me forward, while Peter and Lena stayed close, their eyes reflecting both curiosity and fear, a mirrored image of my own thoughts. "Mom, are you okay?" Peter's words echoed, tugging at a flickering ember of courage within me. In that moment, a powerful resolve began to churn. I wasn't just reaching for the envelope to uncover Rachel's truth, I was recognizing the shadows that tangled around my own reality. I took a deep breath, allowing the air to fill my lungs, awakening the strength slumbering within. This was my fight, not against the storms outside, but against the remnants of my own despair. "Okay," I said, my voice steadying. "I'm going to open it." As I tore the envelope's flap, an electric charge shot through the room, a palpable anticipation that coursed through me like a jolt of lightning. With shaking hands, I unfolded the letter and began to read. "Dear Mom," it began, Rachel's familiar handwriting scrawled across the page, warm yet heavy. "If you are reading this, then I worry that things have grown difficult between us. A part of me knows the choices we make shape our destiny, but another part wishes I could go back to those moments of laughter before everything changed." Tears welled in my eyes, the sincerity of her words piercing through the layers of guilt I had worn as armor. "I want you to know that I've always admired your strength, even when I felt pulled away from you. It wasn't just my struggles that pushed me away, it was seeing the pain in your eyes and feeling helpless to ease it. I wanted to protect you from my chaos." Each word was a thread woven into a larger tapestry of our shared struggles, and I could almost feel my heart fluttering as if it were reconnecting with an old, missed rhythm. I glanced up to see Clara's expression, encouraging yet concerned as I continued to read. "I've made mistakes, too many to count," Rachel wrote. "I know fear and fault have kept us apart, like a wall between us. But it was never anger, it was fear of letting you down once again. The fear of spiraling back into darkness. Mom, I want you to know it's okay to feel lost sometimes. We're all lost, to some extent. By this point, tears streamed down my cheeks. I felt the truth of her words resonate deep within, a shared heartbeat in the chaos that surrounded us. I believe we can find a way back to each other if we can be brave enough to face this together. I'm trying to be brave, Mom. All I want is for you to believe it, too." The letter slipped from my hands, fluttering to the floor like a single feather borne by the wind. In the silence that followed, I could hear the pounding of the rain outside, a rhythm syncing beautifully with the realization washing over me. It wasn't just her words, it was a call to me to abandon my fears, to choose the fight for connection over the easy route of retreating into despair. It was a path, a hope blossoming where I had once only seen shadows. "Mom?" Peter whispered, concern wrapping around every syllable that I began, but the words tangled in my throat. "I think she's saying we don't have to keep hiding." I've been so scared of dealing with my truth that I severed connections that mattered. That I looked at Clara, who smiled softly, the vulnerability she had shown becoming a beacon. "And now? Are you ready to face it?" Peter and Lena stepped forward, their hands finding mine, the warmth binding us together tighter than ever before. "We're ready." Lena's voice resonated with a fearless brightness, reminiscent of pure sunlight breaking through clouds. The storm outside had begun to wane. The wind softened into a gentle sigh. The suffocating remnants of fear began to dissipate into the fresh scent of rain-soaked earth. The darkness that had held my family captive was loosening its grip, surrendering to the fragile beauty of redemption we were desperately forging together. "Together," I whispered, the words seeming to hold the power of the universe itself within it. "We could be brave, we could share our burdens and face our pasts together." This wasn't just about me anymore, it was a chance for us to heal, to rediscover one another amid the debris of heartache. As we stood, united in that dim, flickering light, I realized the storm inside me was not a relentless force tearing me apart, it was a storm of transformation, a catalyst for liberation, urging me to leap into the unknown with love and faith, and to draw my family into the warmth of acceptance. With one final inhalation, I gazed at my children and Clara, and a sense of serenity washed over me, as I finally understood what it meant to trust again. I could feel the winds of change bring forth a new dawn, lifting us above the tumult that had once seemed a prison. As the clouds began to clear outside, I drew a steady breath, feeling the weight of the moment shift. My heart brimmed with the knowledge that in opening the door to connection, we could rebuild what had been broken. And just like that, as the rain softened to a gentle patter, I knew that with every step toward reconciliation, we were stepping closer toward becoming whole again. How beautiful it felt to finally be free in this moment, no longer alone, no longer lost. We're in this together, I declared, the words igniting a sincere fire within me, echoing against the calm after the storm. In that vulnerable place where fear met forgiveness, I finally stepped beyond the threshold that separated us all. The burden hung, now lighter, on my shoulders, clarity washed over me. And in that breathless moment of truth, I understood, this journey I was not just accepting my past, but also embracing my family's future. In the fragile silence that followed, one simple truth rose amongst us: it was not the darkness that defined us. It was the light we chose to let in. Even as the storm receded, I felt the echo of its fury sit silently in the blankets of hope that we entwined around one another and the promise that tomorrow would bring. I could finally feel my heart bloom into a garden of hope, strong enough to keep growing, one heartbeat at a time, and for what felt like the first time in an eternity, I allowed myself to believe, it's okay to find light in the rain. After all, even from the fiercest storms, a rainbow often beckons, not as a promise, but a reminder that healing always follows. Then, against the backdrop of our family's tender moment, the final line echoed through my mind like crystalline bells, leaving the world brighter than before. I realized that we are always stronger together, like roots of a tree intertwined, weathering every storm that life dared to send our way.